Finally, we have a race to look forward to with the latest round in the F1 calendar taking us to the home of Red Bull Racing. Do we see anyone else winning it other than Max? Probably not, and it's not only us who are getting over seeing Max dominate every race this year. Lewis Hamilton is clearly over it, with the Mercedes driver clearly wanting the FIA to make changes to curtail Red Bull's current dominance. Want to know about what the Mercedes driver had to say about stopping Red Bull's dominance and what Verstappen's brutal response was? And it wasn't only Max that had a dig at Lewis, but his teammates as well. Mercedes are clearly not having a good time at the moment, with the team going from dominating the sport for 8 years to celebrating third on the podium as if it was P1. As they say, all good things must come to an end, and Mercedes' dominance was brought to an abrupt halt in 2022. Red Bull walked the Drivers' and Constructors' Championship, but was Mercedes' domination ended by the FIA? Well, that is the question that most people have asked, and according to Ted Kravitz, is the paddock rumor. I mean, you know that there is a reasonably commonly held opinion among some people in the paddock that they only changed the rules, or part of the reason why they changed the rules was to stop Mercedes' dominance. Well, that certainly worked, didn't it? And they also changed the rules. Of course, the FIA and F1 stated the main aim of changing the rules, or stated aim completely, was to improve the racing, and it did do that to a large degree, said Kravitz. If that is the case, should the FIA and F1 not act now to ensure we don't see 8 years of dominance as we've seen in the past? In order to understand this, you probably need to look at the past of F1 and understand that one team dominating is not unusual. Ferrari did it at the turn of the century, Red Bull themselves have done it, it's not a new thing in F1, and the new regulations have tightened up the pack to some degree, just not where everyone wants to see it. Going back to the new regulations, and if they bought it in to slow down Mercedes and end the domination of the Silver Arrows. Well, they certainly have slowed down Mercedes, but the real question is, was it the rules, or did Mercedes just get their car concept wrong? Much has been made of the Mercedes W14B concept, and how the car now resembles the design concept of the RB19, particularly with the side pod design of the new W14, but according to Allison, the problem wasn't the side pods. Allison, who returned to the top technical role at the Brackley-based team recently, says it's much more than the sudden emergence of Red Bull-like side pods. Absolutely not. Anything we changed on the car, we could have done with the old side pods. Our old side pods are no more the reason for our problems than the geometry of the side pods explaining Red Bull's success, said Allison. What about that fantastic floor that we saw in Monaco that Ted Kravitz called a thing of beauty? Well, according to Allison, it's nothing special. Allison rejected that the key to Red Bull's success is the highly complex floor, with many observing that the dominant 2023 car produces more sparks on the straights compared to any other team. We mostly saw that early in the season where they bottomed out on the straights much earlier than other cars at certain tracks, he said, but at the moment, we're no longer seeing that. We're not going to pretend and say that we're aero experts and that we understand exactly what's making the RB19 so quick, but if James Allison is saying it's neither the floor or the side pods, then we'll just go with him. But then how do Mercedes catch up to Red Bull? James Allison has a very different idea on how to do it compared to Lewis Hamilton. Therefore, Allison thinks it's an incremental change that will ultimately enable Mercedes to catch up with Red Bull. I keep saying it internally as well, but there's no reason it shouldn't happen this season as long as we're able to keep improving the car, he said. The challenge is to do that and at the same time build up enough knowledge so we can do it from the start of next season too. Allison is a very clever guy who clearly knows what he's talking about, and it's no surprise that he's being very realistic with all of his expectations. I think most Mercedes fans are in the same boat. They will only believe it when they see it. So if Allison is reasonable, then Lewis Hamilton is being slightly unfair and thinks that the only way that Mercedes is going to beat Red Bull is if the FIA and F1 intervene. I think the FIA should probably put a time where everyone is allowed to start developing on next year's car. So August 1st, that's where everyone can get a start so no one can get an advantage on next year's car, because that sucks, says Hamilton. It would make more sense. They should say, for example, you start the season and know you have a bad car, you can just say, I'm not going to bother developing this car and put all the money into next year's car and have an advantage. Yep. We know what you're all thinking. How can Hamilton possibly be saying that the FIA needed to intervene after he had ultimately had the most dominant era of F1 winning 6 of his 7 titles during a period where Mercedes were so dominant that strategy didn't even matter. They even had a world champion quit on them, and they still dominated. We're not gonna lie, but if this had come from any other driver, we probably wouldn't mind, but Hamilton had a serious golden era. But in the end, Hamilton does have a good point. Ultimately, he is saying that when a team has complete dominance, it creates a never-ending cycle of domination within the sport, with Red Bull doing it with Vettel and Ferrari also doing it. So what exactly does Hamilton want? Hamilton elaborated on his proposal. If everyone had a cutoff time, then no one has a head start and it's a real race in that short space of time for the future car. Maybe that would help everyone be a bit more level on the following year. I might be wrong, but something has to change. It would be cool to see in the next 20 years that we don't have huge bands of time where one team has a lead too far ahead, because we want to see better racing. Now, immediately as Hamilton has said all of these things, you start to think, what does Max think? The Dutchman is not one to mince his words, and let's be honest, Max and Lewis do not like each other, and everyone wants to blame Drive to Survive for hyping up the rivalry, but the two are just not friends and certainly do not get on. Anyone that says we are lying should just look at the recent relationship between Max and Alonso. There seems to be a good relationship, and right now, that is Max's closest competitor. There is not such a warm response towards Lewis, and it indeed showed in Max's response to Lewis after his remarks. Life is unfair as well, so it's not only in Formula 1. A lot of things in life are unfair, so we just have to deal with it. We weren't talking about it when Lewis was winning his championships, right? So I don't think we should now, Verstappen said. The Dutchman didn't even end it there, with a further dig being aimed at Sir Lewis, clearly not happy with Lewis's comments. That's how Formula 1 works. When you have a competitive car, it's great. But at one point, of course you have to look ahead to next year. It's normal that people behind us should say these kind of things, but they should also not forget when they were winning how it was looking. And if people would comment this kind of thing then, they would probably comment a bit different. But that's just how it goes in Formula 1, Verstappen continued. Okay, right, so surely that's all Lewis had to say about Red Bull's recent dominance. Well, that's where you're wrong, with the British driver not finding it enough to call on the FIA to stop Red Bull from dominating the track, but also saying that he doesn't feel that the penalty on Red Bull has done anything. I don't think the penalty cost them anyways. The penalty didn't cost them anything. It definitely didn't. It was so small, said Hamilton. Now, we're not sure if this sudden outburst from Hamilton is pent-up frustration due to the lack of a challenge to the Red Bull, but this man is clearly not happy with what's going on in the sport, and we're sure that most people won't have much sympathy as he had his time and now it's Max's. It wasn't only Max that had a dig at Lewis, but his teammate as well, with Russell saying that he is on the same level as Hamilton. I think at the start of last year, Lewis was on a higher level than I was. Yet, I was well ahead of him in the championship, and now this year, I think we're at a very close level. And the championship, I'm 40 points behind him, said Russell. Alright, George, I think you might need to get back in your box. Lewis has 7 world championships and is pretty much in a class of his own.